When most people think of monster movies, they think of this, or this, or even this. But it's no secret that the original Godzilla movie changed the idea of what a monster could be. It wasn't the first, but it was the most important, and its legacy is still felt in movies today. Monster movies occupy this very unique niche where it can be a horror movie, an action movie, and a political thriller all at the same time. On the surface, they can just be about mindless destruction, but the potential to use monsters as a metaphor for a larger idea is something that I don't see capitalized on enough. I think the original Godzilla movie and Bong Joon-ho's The Host understood this concept the best. The best monsters already exist in real life. Godzilla isn't really a giant lizard attacking Tokyo, it's Japan's fear of nuclear weapons. And The Host isn't really a freaky looking tadpole, it's Western influence on South Korean culture. The origin stories for the monsters are used to represent the consequences of our actions coming back to haunt us. Both movies open by mirroring real life events. The intro to Godzilla mirrors a true story where a Japanese fishing vessel was caught in a weapons test, irradiating the entire crew. Similarly, The Host retells the real-life events of the US military dumping 20 gallons of formaldehyde into the Han River, sparking public outcry.
Let's just dump them in the Han River.
But this is not just any toxic chemicals, so
The Han River is very broad, Mr. Kim. Let's try to be broad-minded about this. Anyway, that's an order. So, start pouring.
The monsters are an easy way to represent a foreign threat, attacking populations that don't understand what they are or where they came from. By attacking an entire population, the monsters provide an opportunity to highlight the flaws of a society and critique the politics surrounding it. The collective fear that people feel in real life is presented in the form of a convenient 50-meter package. In the early 1990s, South Korea lifted its ban on foreign travel for local Koreans. With Koreans now free to explore the Western world, they brought back with them new perspectives on art, cinema, and music. In doing so, the line between Korean culture and Western culture was blurred. The monster in The Host is a product of that negative Western influence on South Korea. It literally swallows up Korean citizens and regurgitates what's left into a sewer. The people that fight against the creature represent the people of Korea as a whole. Namju is an Olympic athlete representing the country's pride on the public stage. Nam-il is an unemployed college graduate representing the financial crisis that South Korea suffered in the 90s. And Gongdu is a struggling father with a tough childhood, a metaphor for Korea's violent history trying to raise the next generation.
니들도 알다시피 강도가 어릴 때 내가 워낙 정신을 못 차리고 밖으로만 나돌던 시절이라 가뜩이나 엄마도 없이 크던 널 불쌍하게 시리. 얼마나 배가 고팠으면 남의 반 여기저기 다니면서 소리질이나 하며 유기농 식단으로 끼니를 때우다가 밭주인한테 걸리면 식살나게 얻어 터지고 그러다 본 게 한창 자랄 나이에 단백질 섭취량이 부족해서 그런지.
Showing how the government responds to the threat gives us a glimpse into how the government is viewed by its people. After World War II, following their loss, the Japanese people struggled to come to terms with how they ended up in a war in the first place. Most people had accepted that the entire country was tricked into participating in a war that was unnecessary. They figured that if their entire country had been more openly democratic, they would have been more able to discuss the ethics of the war they were fighting and potentially avoided the conflict altogether. This is captured in Godzilla, in a scene where politicians try to hide Godzilla's existence. As the debate drags on, Godzilla destroys 17 more ships at sea. In The Host, the South Korean government is portrayed as inept and bureaucratic, rolling over to allow the American military to do what they want. After the first monster attack, the Americans insert themselves into the conflict, detaining Korean citizens against their will. The monster's blood is believed to contain a deadly virus, but it's later revealed that this is all a ruse to distract from the monster's true origins.
The late Sergeant Donald, first one classified as a victim of the virus, was given an extensive autopsy, and no virus was found. He died of shock during the operation.
They even lobotomized the protagonist in order to silence him. In monster movies, defeating the monster is never a straightforward answer. As the military gets more desperate, they start using more and more force, and eventually run the risk of causing more destruction than the monster itself. It's up to the protagonist to come up with a way to defeat the monster to stop the government from destroying itself. In Godzilla, the main characters seek the help of Dr. Serizawa. Serizawa reveals that he's developed the oxygen destroyer, but he's kept it a secret for fear that it will be used as a weapon of war. Eventually he agrees, but in the process of killing Godzilla, he kills himself along with it, ensuring that its secret doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Japan, a country that was destroyed by nuclear weapons less than 10 years earlier, still carries that fear of weapons of mass destruction. Even in a situation where it's the only option to defeat this symbol of the atomic bomb, they hesitate to use it because they've seen the destruction that these weapons can cause. The trauma of the war is felt throughout the movie, with scenes of cities on fire and mass casualties. In The Host, the American military tries to use Agent Yellow to stop the monster. It's a thinly veiled reference to Agent Orange, the real-life chemical that the American military used in the Vietnam War. The chemical caused mass environmental damage and genetic birth defects that are still seen today. The whole final battle takes place with protesters raging on in the background. Agent Yellow ultimately fails to take down the monster, and it's only through the combined efforts of the siblings, a representation of the South Korean people, that kills the monster. The movie ends with the director telling his people to stop focusing on Western media and consume more local culture.
재미없다.
딴데 볼까?
시급하고 끄자. 먹는데 집중.
판단이 필요하다고 생각합니다. 결국 바이러스는 발견되지 않았지만 우리는 이러한 사건의 원인은 분명히 잘못된 정보에 의한 것으로 밝혀졌습니다. 하지만
These movies are good because they take a very real fear and they translate it into a fictional monster. You'd expect Godzilla to have more than 8.5 minutes of screen time in his own movie, but he doesn't. Despite that, you can feel his presence throughout the whole 96-minute runtime, and that's because we recognize the fear and anxiety on the characters' faces. It's the same fear that we feel in real life about war and destruction. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, hit the subscribe button. See you next time.